What's good, Wizards fans, and welcome to the Locked On Wizards podcast. It's your host, the real Ed Oliver, and my guy, Brandon Scott. Today, we're going to go over where Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and Kuzma are ranked in the ESPN and CBS top 100 rankings, and also some more quotes from Tommy Shepard and Wes Unseld Jr.'s press conference. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Brandon, how was your weekend?
I'm feeling some kind of way from Sunday, man. My Commanders didn't let me down, man. So, man, I'm ready for basketball season. So let's get it.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you know, we're both Commanders fans. It was painful to watch, but we're not going to talk too much about the Commanders today. Painful, a lot of pain. But today we just want to talk about Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis, where they were ranked. Also, Kuzma in the ESPN rankings and CBS top 100 rankings. They come out with the rankings every single year. Bradley Beal was ranked pretty high last year. He was ranked at 11. But we'll start off with Kristaps Porzingis. He was ranked in the ESPN rankings. The Wizards only had two players in the ESPN rankings. I got to pull this up. But he was ranked at 86. What were your thoughts on where Kristaps Porzingis was ranked in the ESPN rankings?
I think it's way too low. I think he really solidified his how good of a player he can really be at a max level last season. You know, he had no injuries. Came into DC, was rolling. So I'm very excited to see how him and Bill can play together. So I thought it was real low. I thought there was a lot of players that were ahead of him that, A, were injury prone, and two, were too young to be ahead of a guy who's been in the league for a while and who's shown that, when he's healthy, he's a beast. So, yeah, I think it was way too low.
Definitely, yeah. I think, we talked about, Chris having a bounce back year, not even just a bounce back year, but just having a chip on his shoulder, the bearded Kristaps Porzingis. And I'm very high on Porzingis. I really think he's going to have an all-star year this year. I love the way he played in the last 17 games of the year. I think he's just slept on now because of all the injuries. He's played, 50 games here, 58 games there, missed the whole season after tearing the ACL back in 2018, 2019. Not working, it didn't work out with Luka, with the Mavs in Dallas. And a lot of people are down on him, but he played really, really well in those last 17 games of the year with the Wizards after the trade deadline. I thought he dominated against the Lakers, the Pistons, the Magic, had some really big games. But 86 is really, really low, man. Last year he was ranked 50, so he's dropped 36 spots. The article says Porzingis was terrific after joining the Wizards at the trade deadline, averaging 22 points a game with a true shooting percentage of 60%. That would have been a career high. Porzingis did not play any of those 17 games with Bradley Beal, and how they fit will be worth watching. So they didn't really, say why they put him so low, but we all know because of the injuries. Jordan Clarkson was at 85. I wrote down some other guys. Like you said, the young guys like Paolo Banchero was ahead of him. Josh Giddey from the Thunder was very far ahead of him. Clint Capella is ahead of him. I don't agree with that. Ben Simmons is at a 76 now. Michael Porter Jr. is ahead of Kristaps. I disagree with that. Spencer Dinwiddie's at 69. I disagree with that. With him being ahead of Porzingis, I disagree with Dinwiddie being that high as well. Russell Westbrook's at 65. Kind of not surprised they put him that low. Jalen Green at 62. That's another young guy I think is way too high. I don't think he's better than Porzingis. Kyle Lowry at 60. Harrison Barnes is ahead of Kristaps Porzingis as well. So those were the guys that I really had gripes with that are ahead of Kristaps. And there's more, but those are just some that I named off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, all right, if we're going to bring up injuries, let's talk about Michael Porter Jr. Like, what we talking about there? You know what I mean? Like, if that's the one factor that puts him so low, then why is Michael Porter Jr. even in the top 100? Because, really, let's be honest, it's a popularity thing. Zion, that's another thing. Zion's been out the game how many years? So, I think they're hating on the man. I think he's a lot better than 86. He's shown last season that when he's healthy, he's one of the best centers in his league. The NBA is different now. It's not Patrick Ewing's anymore. You got versatile guys that play at the 5 who can defend and shoot from behind the arc. He's proven to be the modern center. And Brad Beal said, "Look, this is the best center I've ever played with." And
Right.
he's, so I'm just saying, stop hating.
Yeah, it's a big year for him to prove these guys wrong. And I'm happy. I'm happy that we're being slept on. I'm happy that he's been slept on. He's somehow, some way, the unicorn is really under the radar right now, and I'm loving it. I think he's really going to dominate. I just love the fluidity, how healthy he looked in FIBA. We talked about that, how he looked for Latvia. Wes Unseld Jr. Was with him in Latvia for a couple days when we visited him. Porzingis, I think there's going to be some games where he'll be the number one option. Where Bradley Beal, they can interchange as the number one guy. Where who's going to take the most shots or who's going to finish the game, who's going to take that clutch shot. I think Porzingis, there's going to be games where he's going to be that guy where they're really going to run their offense through Porzingis. So I think he has an opportunity to really average a career high in points, get those rebounds back up. He rebounded the ball really well. Blocks, had over a block per game. Shot the 3 ball well, finished well around the rim. They got guys that can move the ball and get him the basketball. He's going to create double teams. I think his assist number is going to go up too. So I think it's going to be a huge year for him, man. I'm super excited for Porzingis, man. I really love that he slept on right now, and I'm definitely, like I said, Harrison Barnes ahead of him. I think that's a little disrespectful. Michael Porter Jr. ahead of him is a little disrespectful. Spencer Dinwiddie too. I think that's a little disrespectful too. I think he's better than Miles Turner too. So there's a couple guys that and it's a list. So he's really disrespected in the CBS list. Pulling that one up right now, He's around the same. He's at 85. So 85, 86. That's what they got him around.
Yeah, it's disrespectful. Come on now. Anybody watches basketball knows that he could play. It's the only question mark has been injuries. That's it. And if you're going to put Michael Porter Jr. out there, Jaren Jackson Jr., I like him as a player, but he's huge injury issues. Zion is somebody that, I think that Zion is a superstar, but availability is the best ability. If you don't play, then I don't agree with that. Ben Simmons, I think potential-wise, athleticism-wise, he's a good player, but look at all this drama. Why are we still ranking him higher? So this is my opinion about it. I think he slept on, and I think that's a good thing. I think the identity of this team is everybody's coming in this season with a chip on their shoulder. The focus, the ready to roll, and KP with FIBA, with the beard, I'm just trying to tell you, watch out, because he's going to have a monster season.
Yeah, he was guarding fours. The way he was guarding guys and moving around the floor, blocking shots, rebounding, dunking on people. The fadeaway, the jumper was there. It was like that at the end of the year too, and he's going to play back-to-backs. There's no minute restrictions. I love hearing that too. So we're going to unleash the beard, and I'm going to start the Kristaps propaganda. I think he's going to have a heck of a year. I think he's going to have a career year this year. I got a good feeling. But before we do get to Bradley Beal's ranking, we got a quick word for Bet Online from Brandon.
My bad. All right. Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continuous source for all your sports wagering information. With live betting and up-to-minute scores, every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, mixed martial arts, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, so yeah, Kuzma wasn't even ranked in the top ESPN 100. What were your thoughts about that?
Same. Disrespectful. Look at how he played last season. I think he showed how complete of a player he is. I think people – it's a fickle league, man, because – on the one hand, a lot of people are judging, what have you done for him lately? But sometimes people go off the pass. I think people, when they look at Kuz, they still think of the Laker years because last season he was a complete player. 3-point shooting, much improved. Defense, much improved. Vision, much improved. Clutch shots, leadership. The list goes on. He in my eyes, he has gone from a role player with a championship team to a core player on a playoff team. He's a core player. We always call it a solid three, not a big three. But man, he impressed me. He turned into a vet, a complete veteran player in his league. So yeah, it was disrespectful. I thought he should have, not even to make the list. I mean, come on, man, what are we talking about? So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, another guy that's been slept on. Kyle Kuzma, man, led the team in double doubles last year, led the team in total rebounds, hit 8 threes in a game, had a triple double last year in a game, was super clutch, hit 17 clutch threes. I mean, this guy really improved. Like you said, coming from the Lakers where he was the third fiddle or fourth fiddle guy after LeBron and AD, where, he was more of a 3-and-D guy. But this with the Wizards, when Brad went down, even with Brad, I thought they had really good chemistry. They played really well together. They played well off of each other and fed off of each other. Kuz as a vocal leader too. I know that doesn't show up in the top 100 rankings or anything like that, but like I said, a lot of guys that are ahead of him, like Grant Williams is at 100, Harrison Barnes. I think Kuzma is just as good, if not better than Harrison Barnes. I would take Kuzma over Harrison Barnes. I like Harrison Barnes. I like his game a lot. I brought him up a couple times, but Kuzma definitely deserves to be on this list, especially after last year. I thought he played really. He had a couple 30-point games too. Averaged 17 points a game. Like you said, both sides of the floor, he played really well, and he made guys around him better. So every facet of the game, had a game where he had 25 points, 22 boards. Tell me how many other guys in the league did that last year, where they had a 20-20 game, a 20 points and a 20 rebound game. How many other guys in the league did that? And Kyle Kuzma was one of those guys that did that. So I thought he had a heck of a year last year. Definitely deserves to be on the top 100. Now on the CBS list, he did make that list. Didn't make the cut on the ESPN list, but he was actually right behind. Actually, he was right above. They have him better than Porzingis on the CBS list. They have him at 82. So he's right above Dylan Brooks and Brook Lopez. Kristaps is at 85. Lou Dort is at 86. Harrison Barnes is at 81, right above Kyle Kuzma. Anthony Simons is at 80. Gordon Hayward's at 79. That's another guy who's been injury prone a lot too. So if you want to talk about injuries too, Gordon Hayward should be towards the bottom of the top 100. DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks is at 78. Alex Caruso is at 77. So they have Alex Caruso being better than Porzingis and Kuzma. What are your thoughts about where both of these Wizards are at?
Utter craziness. It's utter craziness. I mean, come on. Look at. I mean, like I said, if we're going off injury, what are we talking about? I mean, they had him ranked. Let me see. They had him ranked lower than Jeremy Grant. I mean, come on now. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, Kuz is better than Jeremy Grant. No disrespect to Jeremy Grant. Love his game. He's better. It's just, I don't know what it is about people hating on Kuz and KP and even, I ain't gonna say Carson Wentz because I understand a little bit, but you know what I mean? It's way too low. I thought that, if any season where he's ranked higher, this was it, because Kuz last season was clutch. I mean, look, Detroit's a home game for him. He's from where's he from?
Somewhere in Michigan, yeah.
There you go. I mean, that's a home game. So he's hitting a three. He's waving people go. Oh, come on, man. That's fun. I mean, he came into his own last season. I mean, I was a big fan of Kuz. I can go down a list of things he improved. I mean, it's just too disrespectful. They're way too low. So.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, he improved in passing, scoring, rebounding. He really took over that fourth spot. He's a pencil-in starter for the Wizards at the 4 or even maybe the 3. I think he's going to start at the 4, but I think he's found a home in DC. We'll see what happens. We already talked about it's a contract year for him, so we'll see if he's going to be here the year after. But I think definitely. And then they actually have him better than Porzingis, which is pretty funny. Having him at 82 and then Porzingis at 85. So the NBA consensus is just really, really, really low on Kristaps. But I'm ready for these guys. I think we can have multiple guys that score 20 points this game. I think Bradley Beal can be a 20-point scorer. Kuz can be a 20-point scorer. Same thing with, of course, Porzingis is going to score 20 points a game. I got all these guys being capable of doing that this year for sure. So ESPN, let's get to Bradley Beal. I did say we're going to talk about Bradley Beal, but I brought up Kuz and Porzingis first. Now, Bradley Beal, they have him ranked at, I got the top 100 through 25. So he is 25 through 11 in the top. So he's in the top 25. They have him at number 19. Last year, he was ranked at 11. So the write-up, they said Bill had a season to forget, averaging 23 points a game. in 40 games before undergoing season-ending surgery on his left wrist. But that doesn't mean people should forget what Bill can do. He averaged 30 points a game, 31 points per game in the previous 2 seasons, and will have more talent and depth around him, including point guard Monte Morris. What were your thoughts about where he's at? And then he's right above Anthony Davis at 20. 21 is Chris Paul. Jaylen Brown's at 22. Bam Adebayo's at 23. Donovan Mitchell's at 24. Anthony Edwards is at 25. The guys ahead of him, Rudy Gobert at 18. And Jimmy Butler at 17. Trae Young at 16. Paul George at 15. Dame Lillard at 14.
That would be right around where I would have Brad. He's proven that he could be one of the best scorers in the league. When the year he played with Russ, average 31. I mean, he can score. He can score in great volume. He's a 3-level scorer. So, you look at some of the names in front of him, I understand. You look at Rudy Gobert, I get it. But, look, love him or hate him, Rudy Gobert is an elite defensive guy as center. So, you see guys are elite on that list. So, I have no problem where he's listed. I think that he can be better than that this season. I think he's going to take a huge step forward this season. But I can understand why he's at where he's at because of, his 3-point percentage went down, the scoring went down, a lot of the issues not early in the season, but mid-season for the Wizards. So, I get it. But I definitely see him improving greatly this season. I think he's going to have an all-star season.
I think so, too. I think Brad's going to have I think a lot of these guys are going to – Brad and Kristaps have, somewhat of a revenge tour or revenge year. They're slept on now. I wouldn't say Brad is slept on, but Brad, he had a down year last year. Almost career lows in 3-point percentage, field goal percentage, turnovers was had a career high in turnovers. But he was a better playmaker, averaged 6 assists per game. But he just didn't shoot the ball well, and there wasn't really many games where he really took over like he usually does. There weren't many games where he took over and dominated a game. There weren't too many games where I could point to that, or where he was the deciding factor of the outcome of a win. And I think he'll be a better fit next to Monte Morris. I think they're going to be a better fit than what he had last year, where he's not going to have most of the facilitating duties or playmaking duties, where he can go back to the natural two-guard position, the shooting guard position, where he can just worry about putting the ball in the basket and facilitating here and there and not having to be a point guard. Because he had to play point guard last year because we didn't have a point guard for that first half of the year until they made a trade for Ish Smith and Tomas. And Brad didn't even play with those guys. So Brad didn't really have a legitimate point guard on the roster last year, which was unfortunate. But yeah, I think 19 is really good. He was ranked 11th, which is really, really good. That's really good for him. 11 is really good. 19, Anthony Davis. Is he better than Anthony Davis? You could debate that. I think Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, but we've talked about injuries, and Anthony Davis, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy these last couple of years. I mean, Brad's missed games too, so he hasn't been super healthy either. So those are him above Anthony Davis is definitely debatable. I'll say that for sure. Gobert being above Brad because Gobert just defensively he's just he's a really good rim protector and a really good rebounder and a lob threat. He can really change a game by just anchoring a defense. I think Brad's better than Chris Paul at this point because Chris Paul's getting older. Jaylen Brown, I think Brad's better than Jaylen Brown. I think he's better than Bam Adebayo. Donovan Mitchell, that one's debatable too. I think he's better than Anthony Edwards, but Donovan Mitchell is debatable because we've seen Donovan be a number one on the team with the Jazz and lead them to the playoffs multiple years. We've seen Brad be a number one on the team only one time and lead the team to the playoffs with Russell Westbrook. John Wall was the number one every time they went to the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. But I think what's going to change the season is you already brought it up. He's got a point guard who's going to handle that. Even on the second unit, DeLon Wright is going to be able to be that point guard for the second unit. So he can finally, play two guard, focus on shooting. When he's had a point guard that can distribute and take the attention, because think about it, John Wall took a lot of attention. He was able to dish the ball out to open shots. The defenses were always focused on John because he was hitting the lane, the quickness. Same thing with Russ. Russ opened up the offense. That's why, if you look at a lot of these players that got paid, I'm not going to even mention his name because he went to Dallas, but he got that money because, he was able to, get those shots, So I think that if he could play two guard and be the scorer and don't have to worry about distributing, his averages will go up. It will go up, And I think the one thing that's kind of unfair to Brad is, the injury thing. Early in his career, yeah, he had injury issues, but I think he's kind of shedded that injury-prone tag. He's proven that he can play majority of the games of a season. So last year he's unfortunate, but yeah, I wouldn't paint him as a injury-prone player anymore. But yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of these rankings, you see guys who are, the young guys, Josh Giddey, I think hype kind of plays a role. Popularity plays a role. I mean, we all know how the All-Star game has gone. It's turned to a popularity contest as opposed to actually putting guys in there that earn it. And not to say that nobody's earned it, it's just, So I see Brad really taking a step forward. I'm excited to see this team.
Yep. And then lastly, Brad in the CBS rankings, they have him ranked. Let's see, they have him ranked 30th on the CBS rankings. So he was 19 in ESPN, and he was 30th. The guys they have Rudy Gobert ahead of him by 1 again at 29, Bam Adebayo at 28, Brandon Ingram's at 27, Zach LaVine's at 26, Drew Holiday at 25, Pascal Siakam at 24, Chris Middleton at 23, Donovan Mitchell at 22. This is where I said it was debatable. James Harden is ahead of him at 21, Karl Towns at 20, Jaylen Brown at 19. So they have Jaylen Brown 11 spots ahead of Bradley Beal, Chris Paul at 18 ahead of Bradley Beal. Like I said, Chris Paul is a legend. I mean, he's a guy that can really control and take over a game. It's just a floor general, so I can't really disrespect Chris Paul. Zion at 17. We talked about Zion a couple times because of the injuries. He's at 17. Anthony Davis at 16. I said that was debatable having Brad ahead of Anthony Davis. Devin Booker's at 15. Trae Young's at 14. I'll stop there. Damian Lillard's at 13. I'll stop there.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. I agree. It's the problem I have with Anthony Davis is this. At least Brad sees his weaknesses and he works on it. One thing you say about Brad is all season you see them working. I looked at media day for the Lakers, and this guy asked Anthony Davis, did you do anything different this all season to try to get ready to stay away from injuries? And he said, "Oh, I just did the same thing." It's like, come on, I don't want to hear that from the star guy on my team, man. Do the same thing. What did that had you injured last season? So I mean, just mentality wise, you can't. I mean, the drive of Bradley Beal, they try to get better. When they talk about the mini camp in LA and media day, you see this team very focused. You see Brad very focused. And one thing that kind of stood out to me, what he said was talking about getting his mind right. Make sure the home front was right. Getting his mind right, coming into this season with a clear head. You hear things from this team that you haven't heard from past teams. So Brad, he's going to shock him. He's going to shock him. I see a big year from Brad. So, yeah.
Yeah, 30, I think he's a little too low. I would definitely have him above Jaylen Brown. Probably Gobert, too, to be honest with you. I know last year he had a bad year. Now, these guys, they did play better than him last year. I'm not going to debate that. Like, Jaylen Brown had a better year last year. Middleton had a better year. Donovan Mitchell had a better year last year. I don't know about James Harden having a better year. I think, James Harden at times had a better year just because Brad, for his standards, he had a really disappointing year. And he led the league in turnovers in the clutch, too, as well before he got injured. Karl Towns had a really good year, so I think that's fair to put him ahead of Brad. If you're basing things off last year, then yes, there is a couple guys you can put ahead of Brad. But, projecting for this season, I think Brad would definitely be ahead of at least 5 guys on this list. I think you take a look at Pascal. Middleton is clutch. He's a really good sidekick for Giannis. So I think that's definitely debatable. They're having Middleton above Bradley Beal for sure, and Zach LaVine too. I think Brad and Zach are very close. They have similar games, but I do think Bradley Beal is better than Zach LaVine.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one name that struck out to me. And like you just said, if we're basing it off of last season, I get it. But then if we're basing it off last season, there's a lot of names on that list that either A, didn't play a whole lot last season, or B, their games weren't the same. Look, James Harden, Embiid said himself, this is not the James Harden from Houston. He took, what I'm saying? He didn't look too good in the playoffs. I'm just saying. Right. So, I get it, but in the same token, Zion, Anthony Davis, I mean, the list goes on to guys who are always hurt, So, yeah, I'm with you, man.
Definitely, yeah. And Joel Embiid, he wanted to play with Bradley Beal. He really wanted Bradley Beal to come to the Sixers. So multiple reports have said that. So I think that's telling there that you brought up too with Joel Embiid. But we're gonna wrap it up here. Just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Make sure you guys subscribe to Locked On Wizards on YouTube and hit the notification bell as well. And subscribe and also leave a 5-star rating review if you can. Thank you. Hail to the Wizards. Peace.